All right, all right, all right. We are here for another episode of the Red Death Mask stream, reading spooky stories live. And we are gonna be doing a continuation of Ross Road, and she said no strings attached. She lied. I think it's called, no strings attached. Yeah, that's the short title people are calling it. But here, while we get a little bit warmed up, while we get ready to rock and roll, we're just gonna watch a little bit of Marble Hornets while I send out some stream notifications to let people know that I am live. So in the meantime, enjoy Marble Hornets Part 2, right in the middle.
There's a lot of trees there, buddy. Look out. Any one of them could be slender.
I'm great at doing that, Alex. Alex must have been one that sent me the package to my hotel in entry 26, which is clear, but I'm hoping one of the tapes I have includes him explaining it to me.
Interesting. Okay, so Alex sent the info for him to come find him, basically.
Is there another to the arc?
Yes. We just did broadcast. Side tone.
You reached the voicemail of Alex Curley. I'm not answering my phone right now. Please leave your name and a number, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Getting Alex's voicemail here. 37.
All right, now on to...
Are we doing another to the arc?
No. Wait, yes. Okay, yeah. See how entry spelled here? No. Back on where we were just at. See how entry spelled?
Oh, yeah. 2 T's.
It's another hack, yeah.
The title only says memories. Or the description. Fun little mark of the...
Yep. Slender mark.
Happy birthday to you.
There's a fucked happy birthday. Birthday.
Alex, okay.
Happy birthday to you.
That's fun.
Yeah.
All at once. Very nice, Alex.
So this is effectively to the arc taking the channel to say that the operator's always been there.
That's what it makes me think. And also, I didn't know if you got the same vibes, but it makes me think that maybe the I don't know. It makes you think that the person, like one of the parents, is involved. Like, you know, like it's like a person like Freddy Krueger or something like that was a member of the neighborhood, and then he turned out to be this entity. Makes you think maybe like something similar here. You know, I just speculating, but
I could see something like that. Yeah.
38.
Really cool of Marble Hornets to give credit to a smaller indie channel like To the Arc.
It's true. I found the following footage from one of the unlabeled tapes I have. Looks like Alex again. Most of it is Alex and I walking along a trail. We say almost nothing to each other. So to me, this is when they are just brainwashed and they're being led somewhere.
This is the last few minutes. This would explain why Jay wanted to strap a camera to himself and leave it running all the time.
Almost like he is getting, I wonder if he like, in a...
Alex. Also, I have no idea where we are.
We're almost there.
Do you want me to take the camera?
Yeah.
Almost wondering if like in a state of like consciousness.
I love the Blair Witch, whatever style of, I mean, Marble Hornets even particular, because the whole thing, like they start out, they're making a movie, same way how Blair Witch is making a documentary, but I just love, like, a camera shaking in the woods, just already scary, without any other context, just shitty, grainy footage shaking in a forest. I'm already like, whoa, some shit's going down.
For a second, if he was like, I need to strap this on and always record because I'm like getting lost.
Yeah.
Nothing.
When I first moved here, I remember hearing a story that back in the 1800s, they thought this place was blessed because everything would grow so fast. They would take their worst criminals,
How do I pop out
murderers,
my
and child
chat?
molesters, and they
I
would
don't
put them on
remember
trial before
how.
God out here. They would tie them up to the trees, and the idea was that they would get stretched out, kind of like
There's
a rat.
a way to do it from YouTube, maybe.
They never fed or gave them water, though, so they just...
Are you trying to, like, so sorry to interrupt here. So Slender Man is tall dude, right? He said child predators and stuff like that. Once again, makes me lean towards, like, maybe like one of the parents or somebody in the community was that and was, you know, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
They never cut down the bodies. They would just burn the whole tree with them still on it.
That's sick.
They stopped doing it, though, after the kid went missing. And he finally turned up in the area where they would do the trials. He had been
It's just the one
dismembered and
thing.
strung up.
So is
Oh
this
well,
while we're out
whatever.
here
Fuck it.
to look at trees and tell spooky ghost stories?
Come here.
What?
Just come here.
Wait, hold on a second. There's only about a minute left on this tape. I'm gonna change it real quick.
That was pretty cool. Gosh, it's so interesting. Why did all of this happen, and why can't they remember any of it?
Alex's performance is really good here too, by the way.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
And this is, yeah.
And I like how he addresses it, yeah.
He didn't post it, don't know where it came from. Could have been him, though, in a spurt of, like...
That's true. Yeah. Nice. Sick.
Let's go. 39.
Alex,
Meet me at Rosswood Park tomorrow.
why haven't you called? It's been over a week.
Meet me at Rosswood
No,
Park.
I heard you. Just where have you been? Alex. Alright, just hang up on me.
You can't be that mad. There's clearly some super.
Alright, sorry folks. I was just trying to watch a little Marble Hornets and figure out how to pop out my chat so that I can see it on my laptop here as I stream, but alright, without any further ado, we will just get into these stories. Read what you wonderful people have to say. All right. So here we are. We are back to the hellish nightmare known as Ross Road. I guess I'll do a short recap. Other than that, though, I just kind of want to get into the stories. I want to read them. Sorry I didn't stream sooner, by the way. I wanted to over the weekend, but I just wasn't able to. Had some stuff come up, but we're here now. So, basically what is going on in Ross Road is we have our character Jack, and Jack's having a rough time. He essentially lost his car, or didn't lose his car, but his car broke down, and we know he's stuck on this road. He keeps kind of returning to the same sign, the same sort of sign that tells you you can turn left or right, but you can't go straight, kind of the two arrows pointing each way, you know. And basically, he's walking, he's walking forever. Basically, he finds this diner. All seems like it's going well. He's gonna get a tow. The diner is called like the Synaphia Diner. It means consequence, I believe, in Greek. And essentially, we think that everything's going fine. the lady's super nice to him at the diner. You know, he's getting some food, and then he falls asleep because he's exhausted. And then shit really hits the fan. So he wakes up to some heat, and then basically the diner, there's a fire in the kitchen. He puts that fire out. He goes outside to find the corpse of the waitress of the diner. I forget her name. Hopefully it'll be in the story again, or maybe I'll just Prim. Prim? I don't know. That sounds right, but then I'm like, is that just from Hunger Games? Am I just, you know? But anyways, yeah, and so he goes out to basically, and he hears something from the waitress before he falls asleep where she's like, choose. And basically what he said in the diner, then he sees over off in the woods, he sees that her corpse has been impaled through her pregnant stomach, and the wound appears self-inflicted, and it's this crazy, bloody, gory scene, and then he runs to try to get into her car to try to get help, and I think he even calls 911, and then the operator says, like, you know, you can't choose or something like that, and essentially the car is on fire too. He hits his head on the pavement, and then we don't know what happens. The part 2 ends right there. So now we're getting part 3, and I'm guessing that either this is going to be maybe a change in time, maybe this is going to be a flashback, maybe this is just going to be another hellish dream nightmare of where he's at on this road. Who knows? But let's just get into it. Here, let's get some. Let's get some music going real quick. There we go. Right. There were bottles. Some of them were half empty. Others had been broken against the bed frame. The liquor pooled and sunk into the crevices between the wooden floorboards. It spread slowly, with the slant of the floor curving around the bedposts. The bits of glass refracted whatever light bounced off the liquid, creating tiny pearlescent shines across a sea of booze. It looked kind of like a night sky, he thought. His head hurt. Why did his head hurt? Maybe he could be a spaceman, drift off into those little shiny stars through the sea of the universe, and things would be quiet. His head wouldn't hurt. I can do whatever I goddamn need to, you pig fuck. The voice was loud but far away. It was subdued by layers of walls and fog of his mind, but the sound still had a sharpness to it. The sharpness nicked him. Jack grimaced. He was floating in the sea. It shouldn't be sharp here. What am I supposed to say when people start asking? You just need to take everything down with you. Is that it? You'd rather ruin everything for us than man up for once? The female voice was calmer, more controlled, but just as loud. A hatred most precise floated just behind its words. In the contrast of the torrent of malice the male voice failed to hide. Jack felt like he was bleeding, but he wasn't. That was silly. If he was bleeding, the liquid on the floor would be red. You don't get to ask me that. Glass broke somewhere. Oh, okay. So I think what's going on here is maybe this is a fight with his parents, because in the beginning of the story it's saying that he's going to fly to Idaho, I think, or something, to get his inheritance, so that his mom can't get it, because his dad doesn't want his estranged wife to be able to get it. And so his parents were on very bad terms, is basically, what we kind of need to know. And this seems like some sort of a flashback to where he's hearing maybe his parents argue, but I'm just guessing. So Jack felt like he was bleeding. Okay. You don't get to ask me that. Glass broke somewhere. It wasn't in the sea where Jack was, though. He didn't want to break any more glass. Besides, he had only had one bottle left. Jack drifted out of his little sea, and the voices from downstairs came back into focus. He looked to his left hand. Shit. He lost track of his arm and was holding the bottle lazily on its side. Most of the amber liquid had poured onto the floor, creating a new puddle that was just now meeting the one he'd been floating in. He needed to get another. With some effort, Jack pushed himself forward and off his bed. Landing on his feet caused his head to rush, and for a moment, he held his arms out to steady himself, scraping his knuckles across the rough wood of the bed frame. His vision blurred at its edges and focused solely on the scratched wooden door across the room. Just had to be quick. They wouldn't notice if he was quick. Jack's arms were cold, not freezing, but just on the edge of sending shivers through his body. The next sensation that came back to him was pain in his cheek. The minuscule canyons and valleys of the cracked asphalt pressed into his skin with all the weight of his head behind it. There would almost certainly be an imprint left on his face. He lifted his chin off the ground, and instinctively his eyes blinked the awareness back into them. Jack wiped at his eyes, rubbing away the mix of sleep and tears that had accumulated there. He was on his stomach. The night was quiet. Trees stood in silent judgment ahead of him. Just beyond the end of the road, the mist remained, but it seemed thicker, closer, more present. The individual trunks of the trees even blurred together a bit in its refraction. Where was he? Propping himself up with his right arm, Jack rolled over. All at once he was reminded of what happened as his back scraped along the pavement. Ah, fuck, shit, ow, ow, ow. Jack sat up quickly, cradled his side with his arm. The pain along his back had been immediate. He had ripped through his nerve endings as soon as he touched the pavement. He craned his neck, but couldn't get a good angle to see what was wrong. To his pleasant surprise, the thickness of the mist and fog was providing some immediate relief. The wet air that hung around him was quickly draining his body heat, but also soothing the pain in his back. So I think maybe the car exploded. Yeah, I might have gotten that part wrong. I think the car exploded and it sent him kind of flying back, and he hit his head on the pavement. and like cold tap water over a burn from the stove. Jack let go of his side and looked back at the diner. It was dark. A section of the roof had collapsed in, shattered. Grass lay strewn across the parking lot. The neon green lights that made up the trim above the windows was no longer lit. He could see some of the tube bulbs that had been compromised. He can see some of the tube bulbs that it had been comprised of were shattered. Huge areas of the walls and interior were charred black where the fire had passed over. The only source of light that remained was the eerie green glow of the diner's sign up on its pole. It was a bit away from the building itself, but the fire seemed to have reached its base. As the bottom 10 or so feet of the pole was also charred black, the diner lettering had fully gone out, leaving just Cinephia. The neon tubes flickering their sickly light as whatever wiring remained tried to maintain current through the damage. Jack's gaze fell back on the parking lot where he saw the car that had sent him flying. The rear side was in tatters. Pieces of tire rubber were strewn across the asphalt, and some had flown as far as the grass of the tree line. Shards of bent metal curved outward where the trunk of the back door had been. The seats were deep charcoal black. Their leather had dried out and cracked in the heat. His brain tried to sort out what could have happened. He used the fire extinguisher to put out the stovetop when his eggs were burning. He was sure of it. And even if he hadn't fully put it out, there was no way the fire could have spread fast enough to become what it did. Never mind the fact that the car, which wasn't even in the building, was also burning. With a painful effort, Jack steadied himself on his arm and stood up, first onto one knee, then both feet. How long had he been unconscious? The diner was completely dark and entirely quiet. The fire was gone. No smoke, no embers, nothing. He took a few shaky steps toward the building, which turned into a cautious and controlled walk as his legs came back to life. He gave the car wreck a wide berth as he passed it and came up to one of the few glass windows of the diner that wasn't shattered nor coated with ash. He could make out his half reflection in the transparent pane, illuminated occasionally by the fickle green light of the sign behind him. The pavement had indeed left an imprint on his cheek while he'd been lying there. His temple had also received a nasty cut from the impact. Just above his left eye, blood had poured down the curves of his face and narrowly avoided his eye, but the whole trail had dried at this point. Jack turned halfway and looked over his shoulder, grimacing in pain as he did so. The sweater he had worn was torn along his back. The brownish maroon threads that Penny had spent so many hours interweaving had ripped and unraveled. Penny is his girlfriend who he might have broken up with, or even if they're not broken up, they're kind of on the rocks because he started drinking again when he was supposed to quit with her. The shirt beneath had been similarly blown away, leaving the majority of his bare back exposed. Jack sucked in a breath as he assessed the damage. His skin was blistered and burned in multiple places from the base of his spine all the way up his right side. The skin was rippled and discolored. Some parts were simply red. Others had pock marks of a sausage left too long over a campfire. Ugh. Dried blood ran all along the creases created by the curdled skin. In the green light, the coloration and shadows gave his injuries an inhuman look, like something out of a zombie movie. The shoulder blades had gotten the worst of it. As he forced himself to look closer, Jack could see small specks sprinkled across the burned flesh that caught the light and glimmered it back at him. Glass and metal. Ugh. Jack wanted to throw up again. The car had exploded into his back, burrowing tiny pellets of debris into him like a shotgun. His stomach heaved, but nothing came up. He looked and he looked away. He could feel the panic rising in his chest, the persistent pressure on his ribs, the unnaturally light feeling his lungs took on his breathing sped up. He slammed his eyes shut and tried to take deep breaths. What the fuck was happening? For a moment he thought he'd lost it and was about to collapse. But just at the brink, his heart started to slow and his breathing relaxed. He needed a drink. I wish I would have said something. I was literally given the whole fact of we got that scene of him like waking up passed out drunk to his parents fighting in the pool of booze, and then the fact that he's like, I need another bottle. I was like, I guarantee you he's gonna drink like when he does wake back up, or he's gonna be like, I need a drink. I wish I would have said it, but yeah, I was thinking that as somebody who has struggled with addiction myself, I know that feeling all too well, and I especially know it when you're like, shit's going wrong, it can't go any more wrong, so I might as well, make things a little bit better in the short term by having a drink. Can't get any worse. It's that whole, in recovery, they say like the addict mindset or the, the short-term relief. It's essentially a craving is what it is. I mean, people understand craving. Even people who aren't addicts, can understand a craving for sugar, nicotine, or food. It's that same feeling. It's a little different when you're already an addict too. Whether you've been sober for a while or you're an addict who just continues to use, it's a very recognizable feeling, and people don't understand because they don't understand the disease of addiction that like your mind will always tell you it's a good idea. You will always be able to think. Most addicts for the rest of their life will always be able to think of reasons to use or reasons to get high or drunk. You're never gonna be like, man, I can't think of a good reason right now. You're never gonna struggle to find a reason. And that's the part of, addiction's a disease of thought. That's what people don't like realize, is that it has physical components and obviously physical substances, but it is like a mental disorder in a lot of ways, and addiction essentially hijacks like the survival part, other parts of your brain too, the decision making parts, but also the survival part of your brain, where like addicts in certain like tests and stuff will be given a choice, and they can see that like when they make that choice to like use or what, the part of the brain that's making the decision is like deep in your, it's like your lizard brain, it's like in your midbrain. That is how powerful it is. So like the fact that he's in this life or death scenario, and he's like, his back is all scraped up, he might have like 3rd-degree burns, like who the fuck knows. I'm not surprised at all that he's like, I need a drink. He's not thinking like, I need to give myself first aid, or I need to whatever, get out of here, or I need to find somebody to help me. He's like, I need a drink. My guess is he's either going to go back in the diner and look for alcohol, or maybe the insidious nature of Ross Road in the fact that it seems to kind of, it's playing with this whole idea of choice, and it wants him to make a choice, or stuff like that. But then it also it definitely seems to kind of want to punish him one way or the other. And so my guess is like, because that's where the story's gone so far, that it will give him that, if he wants to drink, it will give him that choice where maybe it'll provide him with alcohol, maybe he'll have maybe a truck will drive by that's like, a Jack Daniels truck or something, who the hell knows, but it's a mystical, ethereal, road that's like seems to be exacerbating his past trauma. And I don't want to get into this too much, but the fact that I just talked about addiction so much kind of here, it's like, I do think that Ross Road in and of itself is certainly a metaphor for like addiction and making the wrong choices and things like that. And it seems like, who knows how much that'll be bared out. I don't think the story is just about addiction, but it does seem like that is sort of just the way that the story's going, and that's what it's evoking in me as a person, who's struggled with similar things and gets it. This idea that you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, you're damned with whatever choice you make, is something very familiar, especially to the seasoned addict or the seasoned alcoholic, somebody who knows the consequences of drinking and stuff like that, or whatever their drug of choice is, somebody who knows the consequences of it, but also knows the consequences and the pain of not having your quick release, of not having your drug of choice, or of not having just a way to control your emotions, basically, or a way to satiate your negative feelings. It's like, that is what drugs do for people. And when you choose, let's say you do what's perceived in like society and stuff as the right thing, you don't get high or you don't drink, well, guess what? You're not like suddenly happy then because you didn't drink. Especially if you're in the throes of like a really bad craving, you're miserable, you're sad, you're depressed, all those feelings are still there. So yeah, it's really interesting that now he's in this like, he's got all this physical pain and all that stuff, and yeah, that sorry, I kind of forgot where I was going with that. I worked all night, but just that, yeah, there's there's still kind of this choice and this, you know, if he helps himself, meaning like maybe he gives himself first aid or whatever, I think the road is going to still punish him for doing that. And if he chooses to drink and, you know, just get hammered and sit on the side of the road, I think the road is still going to punish him the same way that, you know, addiction might punish you, or the same way that like past trauma might punish you. So yeah, that's just, again, that's just that's one of the components I think that this road is. I think this road is a allegory or a metaphor for addiction in general, along with other things. We'll see. How was he not in more pain? Jack thought. That answer came to him immediately. Adrenaline. That had to be it. His body wasn't letting him feel anything. Jack wondered how long it could keep that up. He didn't want to know what it would feel like. At the same time, Jack could feel the chemical sedative wearing off, and the pain was taking up more and more of his perception. Or maybe was he only imagining that because he just thought of it? What was that called? Placebo? Yeah. It's like that thing in you know, I feel like it's been in some movies or whatever where they're like, someone like cuts off their finger or whatever, and they're like, whoa, I don't feel it. And then people are like, adrenaline, you'll feel it in a second. And then as soon as like somebody mentions that to him, or as soon as somebody mentions like, you're just in shock, you know, hold on, then immediately the person's like, ah, you know. And so I feel like that's this kind of moment. What was that called? Placebo? Jack turned away from the glass and stepped toward the road. He didn't want to look at the damage anymore. Even knowing the gruesome reflection of his back was behind him felt like there was a monster waiting just over his shoulder. He hobbled back out into the road, wincing with each footfall. Even slight movements moved the skin on his back enough to agitate the shrapnel. Jack felt his right pocket and was relieved to feel the familiar shape of a phone. He pulled it out. It was Prim's. The screen had shattered on impact with the pavement. It refused to turn on. Hurriedly, Jack let it fall to the pavement and went digging in his other pocket. He found his phone and steeled himself for disappointment. This one had survived. The screen lit up and he turned it over in his hand. 3:10 a.m. 5% battery remaining. Jack's brow furrowed as he read the screen. That didn't make any sense. He checked the time just before he found the diner, and it had been later than that. Or 5 a.m. or something. I was like, either he was just passed out for like 24 hours, or he's kind of jumped back in time a little bit. Which I'm not surprised. I mean, the time has been fucking with him literally since he first missed his exit or first, you know, took the wrong exit. It seems like time has been fucking with him, even though it's not super obvious in the beginning of the story. Like, the time in terms of the fact that it just kept saying like, oh, in 15 minutes you'll be like where you need to be, or you'll be back at the airport. Like, his GPS kept telling him that. So immediately, like, that's another thing about the story. We can't trust technology really at all at this point. Whether it's a car or whether it's, you know, a fire extinguisher or, you know, the time, it doesn't seem like any of it is possible. Oh shit. Jack swiped open the phone. Oh, hey, what's up, Keith DeSantis? There was a line from Mother Horse Eyes about addiction, something like how drugs are used to hurt people feel better, but addicts can't do that. It's like the cure for a burn victim being set on fire. Yeah, that is, that's the problem with addiction, is that there is no cure. It's an incurable disease, and then also at the same time there is, like, they wouldn't want you to say this at like a meeting or something, but there is a cure, and the cure is, your drug of choice, with whether that's gambling, whether that's whatever. It's like, that's the issue. Yeah, the cure is a burn victim set on fire. Yeah, I need to listen to Mother Horse Eyes again. It was definitely one of my favorite stories on CreepCast. And for so many different reasons. It was one of those stories that, this is gonna sound like weird to say, but almost like, did one of my friends write this? Not that I have like a lot of amazing author friends who are like fucking geniuses like that writer clearly is. But like the part when it talked about the Ken Kesey and the merry band of pranksters and all that shit, like I remember learning about them and like the acid tests and stuff. I remember like watching documentaries with my friends and shit in high school, like about them, and learning about like, the counterculture movement and Hunter S. Thompson and just all this different shit. And that story just spoke to me on so many different levels. And I do have to say that, like, as much as I liked all the cool historical shit and all the cool flesh interfaces and yada yada, I equally liked the parts where the dude is just it's clear that the narrator is talking about himself, and he's like, I've lived all these past lives. I know about these things called flesh interfaces and yada yada, and he's just like talking about living in the halfway house with his roommate and all that different shit. I loved all those parts so much. Like, I love those parts just as more, which is hard for me to say because I love the fucking, the Nazi concentration camp part, or the fucking on the beaches of Japan, with the World War II stuff, and then the Manson cult stuff. Like, I loved it all, and I especially loved, it was the one really funny part in the whole, the story has many kind of little funny things, but I loved the demon penis. Oh, Paul, I don't want to swing on some stupid demon penis. That shit killed me. But as much as I loved those parts, I also liked those more simple parts towards the end where he's talking about, like, I'm trying to fix my life. Like, I need to fix my life. I need to know who Mother Horse Eyes is. I need to know, like, why I was trapped with her for a summer and all this stuff. And he needs to find the flesh interface so that he can go in and to this alternate dimension and kind of give Mother Horse Eyes the what, baby? Sorry, I got a kitty. Just came to say hi. Hi, baby. Yeah, I fucking loved Mother Horse. I'm to the point where I wish the story, like, I don't know, I wish he at least had merch or something, just so I could get a Mother Horse Eyes t-shirt, very bare minimum. It's so much, but it's so good. Def going to need another listen one day to really get it. Yeah, no, and I'm really looking forward to Wendigoon's full video on it too. I will be clicking on that shit as soon as it comes out, and I do believe he will make it. He loved the story. if I have to, and this is completely separate from the actual story itself, but if I do had to give like one complaint about the episode in general, is that I wish, I don't know, I just wish Hunter would have talked more about it, would have given more thoughts, if only like because it seemed like Isaiah so much, like Isaiah was pausing to give commentary and just say how much he liked it, and then it just felt like Hunter was just trying to take it in, and you can tell that he liked the story because in a lot of the other stories that they've read, he just got that he's really liked, or that he's like, you can tell he really respects like the writing and the author. He just gets really quiet. He kind of did. Yeah, he did the same thing in a few different times. The hidden web page, Dagon's mirror, and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, Hunter did say stuff, but I almost wanted him to like kind of like challenge some of Isaiah's ideas. Not that I think that Isaiah was wrong, but just because like there was a lot of stuff in there like about addiction, or about like the roommates whole thing where I just felt like if Isaiah and Hunter were talking more about the story as they were going through it, they might have picked up on a little bit more. Now granted, like, it's their podcast. They can experience the story however the fuck they want to. But I do think that, like, there is some places in there where they could have kind of dug a little bit deeper. Like, especially, I kind of wanted them to interrogate, and maybe I missed it. Maybe they did. But, hi, kitty. You want to see the kitty? Let's say hi to the people. Say hi. I kind of want to do them to interrogate more, like, okay, so in the main narrator's like life, he has had all these other lives and has all this crazy shit about flesh interfaces, but then this other guy who's his roommate has also seen and been to one of the entrances to the flesh interfaces. So as much as you could say like the whole story is just about like one man's bad acid trip that like, or bad acid trips that like led him into creating this crazy narrative, there also is this one point in the story where like there's somebody else who knows about the flesh interfaces. And I just find that really interesting because I think it's you could really easily read the story as, oh, it has this kind of ethereal ending where, was it all in the narrator's head? Yeah, probably, but, blah, blah, blah. And like, you could kind of read it that way where like, it's just a crazy guy who struggles with addiction, who had all this stuff. But I really liked that the story, like, that this whole underlying narrative that has guided his whole life was completely like not fictional, if that makes sense. Like, I like that the lines became so blurred at the end that you're like, oh shit, Anyway, sorry, I know you're listening to it right now, like you said, so I realized maybe I was going too far into the end there, but yeah, I fucking love Mother Horse Eyes and love what it has to say about addiction, history. I mean, really all of it. Technology. Great fucking story. Anyways, but we're reading Ross Road right now, which is very good, and I don't want to take away too much from that. So oh shit. Jack swiped open the phone. Knew he was using precious battery power, keeping the screen lit more than it needed to be. But he had to check. The home page of his off-brand Android had a detailed date and time display that read 3:10 a.m. Huh? 3:10 a.m. Tuesday, November 18th. Jack stared at the screen for a good while before coming to terms with what he was reading. He turned the phone off again to conserve power and slid it into his right pocket. It was Tuesday. He left for the airport on Monday morning. He had been laying in the road for almost 24 hours. Oh shit. So he did. Again, if we can trust it, which we can't trust the technology in the story, but you know, according to time, as the record of time as Jack has it, he's been on the road 24 hours. Jack tried to rationalize it. The length of time he'd been unconscious wasn't the problem. Hell, he'd taken a bad hit to the head. He was lucky he'd woken up at all. No, what bothered him was that no one had seen him there through the course of an entire day. He was on a back road, sure, but this was right in front of a diner. This place must get some traffic to stay in business. Never mind that he couldn't have been that far from the interstate he'd gotten off of the night before. There's no way in hell that a single person came down this road over the course of a day. It wasn't like they could have missed him. He had been sprawled out across the dotted yellow line. That's not something you overlook. Jack's thoughts were interrupted as a sting of pain flared up from his back, forcing him to clench his teeth. Okay, cool. I'm glad I didn't spoil Mother Horse Eyes. Especially because, like I was saying, so much of the story you can read it as it's just all these crazy acid trips, and you know, maybe some of the stuff is like historically relevant or accurate or this and that. But you can read it as like all one crazy acid trip, but then like at the same time I'm like, it ties together so well at the end that to me, the way that I perceive the story is I don't think it was all one dude and just his crazy mind ran away from him. The same way that in this story, even in Ross Road right here, like Jack, even though some things are clearly happening that are like supernatural or whatever else, and yeah, it's a story, in the context of the story, I don't think it is all just a fever dream. Because there are some stories where a bunch of shit happens, but in the end, it was all just a dream. Transall Saga is one such book where it's like, you know, it ends how it began, and you're like, oh, so just none of it matters. Okay, cool. Or not that none of it matters because the person was changed, but you're like, oh, okay, you know, there is a fuck you moment to the reader in that book. And to me, Mother Horse Eyes didn't have that. To me, it was uplifting, and it was like, you know, there was some sort of recompense, there was some sort of you know, finality to it where you felt like it ended in the way it should have, which is very hard to do for such a crazy story. So props to them. And the same way, I do feel like this story is going somewhere where, as much as he's just going down a crazy road, that all this imaginary seeming stuff seems to be happening, in terms of like this stuff couldn't actually happen or it couldn't actually be real. It seems to be, you know, intentional. Clenched his teeth. He didn't get a chance to continue pondering how long he'd laid unconscious in front of that diner. As the slightest change in light pierced Jack's peripheral vision, he turned from the way he'd come and looked down the other side of the road. There was still a rapid decline in visibility from fog, but as he focused and made sense of the way the light played against it, he could see the way it implied there was a light source coming from down the road. Jack carefully looked back over his shoulder, swapping his focus between the way he'd come and what was left of the diner. Something set that fire. Something had to have. Something that let him lay here helpless and unconscious for hours. The thought somehow made the scene even more unnerving to Jack. What if it was still here? Suddenly, it seemed like every shadow had something it was obscuring. Every tree had something out of sight just behind it. He inhaled a short breath to prepare for the pain it would bring. Then turned back and started taking slow, cautious steps toward the light from the fog to get a better look. Every few steps he would stop, take a breath, and grit his teeth through the discomfort of turning to make sure the diner was still visible. He decided he didn't believe in placebo. Adrenaline was definitely draining. This shit was hurting more and more every step. I like that line. Of just like, he decided he didn't believe in placebo, because just the nature of placebo is like, you believe, it'll help. If you don't believe, you know, it won't help. I just like that. I like that end of the paragraph. After about 30 feet, the light bouncing around the fog had began to focus. While it still smeared across the mist, it was much clearer than before. Two focused beams of white light far off, spreading out toward him. Headlights. Jack's chest fluttered. His fight or flight was still very active, but the promise of hope took precedence in his decision making. His pace picked up, a powerful impatience finding its way into each step. The pain flared in his back with the change of speed, but it was suddenly much easier to ignore. Hey, over here, please, oh God, there's been a fire, and Jack's voice caught in his throat as he fully remembered Prim, her body floating like a marionette on the shattered broom handle. Please, hey! The headlights were getting closer now, their shapes clear with each step. I need help, I'm hurt bad. Jack's voice trailed off as the space around the light source revealed its definition. Passenger side headlight wasn't quite right. Now that he was closer, he could see its angle was a bit bent, and the beam it projected was misshapen compared to the other. His steps continued, without their previous enthusiasm. The fog suddenly receded in a step, and Jack found himself raising his hand to cover his eyes. The unbroken shine was hitting him directly in his eyes, and without the shield of mist, his eyes couldn't focus quick enough. He sidestepped around the blinding beam, his eyes blinked into focus without it incapacitating him. The glow shedding off the headlights allowed him to finally get a clear picture of the scene before him. There was a tree, a great massive one. Thick trunk jetted out from the earth at the bottom of a steep hill, unmoving. Partially wrapped around its bark was a grisly-looking car wreck. The silver sedan's passenger side had collided with the behemoth head-on. One headlight and the hood were almost comically bent around its circumference. Tire and wheel well sprawled out of their normal placement at harsh angles. The car was still running. The chugging of the engine could be heard, and a dim yellow interior light was on in the cab. So that's the headlight you see, and that's the misshapen. I see now. Misshapenness of the headlights is because the car was crashed around a tree. That wasn't what immediately caught Jack's attention, however. No, what Jack couldn't stop looking at was what sat in front of the tree. The road ended right before the base of the hill and forked, extending off in either direction. The sedan seemed to have come barreling down the hill from above. Standing silently between the street and the car-wrapped tree was a sign, a large yellow street sign with a double-ended black arrow pointing off into the fog. So we're back here again. We're back here to this sign. This is the sign that Jack kept running into at the beginning of the story, that he eventually, I think, ditched his car at, that he saw the deer underneath. And at first I thought it's just a road sign, but the sign is definitely, the more I read into this story, the sign is definitely, in the simplest terms, it is a choice, right? It is a left or right. You gotta go one way. You can't go straight anymore. You gotta make a choice. And the more and more the sign seems to be that, and it also seems to be the that these choices are the catalyst is the word that's coming to mind, but it's not the word I wanted to use. But these are the areas where bad things are happening, whether it's the dead deer, whether it's, his car breaking down, whatever. It seems like these signs are immediately foreshadowing or just markers for bad shit to happen, foreshadowing of the stuff to come. And honestly, with this story, I don't think it matters what you choose. I think the whole point of what it's saying is a choice and, negative result no matter which choice you make. And choices are always preceded, always happen right before these bad things happen. Jack stood still for some time. What'd you miss, Rude Dude? Well, Jack woke up. He woke up. He got blown up by the car in front of the diner, and now he's walked a ways. He also woke up, and there was the scene of him wanting to drink, and there was a bottle spilling on the ground, and it seemed like maybe his parents were arguing, is what it sounded like, in the other room. And then he kind of came to, and he was on the road, and yeah, basically he started to walk off until now he found this car wrapped around a tree right by the yellow street sign, pointing off into each direction. So that is where we're at on Ross Road. Jack stood still for some time. He was afraid to move, to make any sound. The sign just sat there, its yellow color unnatural against the dark greens and grays of the forest. The headlights behind caught its edges and cast an immense shadow down across the pavement. The only sound in the whole forest was the hum of the car's engine. It followed a slight pattern. Chug, 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 chug. I kind of just made that up. I guess it's chug, 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 chug. How it's written. I just kind of made up a rhythm. Like a heartbeat. Jack could have sworn his own heartbeat was straining to match the car's. The sign stood staring down at him. Fear was back in full force, and the pain of his back was pushed to the bottom of his senses. Priority list in favor of keen hearing and sight. Slowly, Jack stepped out and around the scene, never taking his eyes off the street sign. As he loped around, he took a couple paces off the road and up the earthen hill. He forcefully and carefully turned his gaze to the driver's side door of the car. There was no one inside. The windshield had been obliterated. Tiny shards of broken glass were littered all across the dash and front seats. There were other shards of glass, though, some with different tints. A familiar smell hit his nose, and he immediately knew where the outlier pieces had come from. Strewn about the cabin were empty bottles of liquor, some half shattered, some intact. Uh-oh. Something itched in Jack's brain. You know what that means? Jackie's gonna get a drink. Old Jackie's feeling a little shaky, and he's gonna get some of Grandpa's old cough medicine. Honestly, at this point in the story, here's the thing. I'm sober, I am in recovery, but in the context of horror stories, even if the people are addicts, I think it's okay if at this point you watched you saw a pregnant woman's body be impaled, you're stuck on a non-Euclidean road, nightmare fuel road, basically, for short, you know. At this point, I think it's okay if you have a drink. I'm gonna condone it. I'm gonna allow it. But that's just my feeling. But they teach you not to judge people in the program, so maybe that's why I'm non-judgmental about it. You know, you don't blame what's the thing? It's not a saying, but you know, you don't blame a fish for being wet, you know. You don't. It's just in an addict's nature that when things go wrong, they're gonna want to drink, or an alcoholic's nature. So this is Canada Dry. This is my poison. This is the only thing I will allow myself these days. But in the spirit of Jack hopefully getting to drink here, getting to have a drink to take the edge off, I'm gonna have some Canada Dry. Because god damn it, I want it. Shout out to Canada Dry. Something itched in Jack's brain. This is exactly what a craving, by the way. The person who wrote this definitely has experience with addiction, probably alcohol addiction, but who knows. But something itched in Jack's brain. His tongue was dry and his throat wouldn't let air through. He didn't want to take another step, or the passenger side would come into view. Now maybe they're just writing that as Jack was scared. Maybe that's what they mean by his tongue was dry and all that shit, but I think that's the craving. I think that's It said earlier he wanted a drink. Now he sees the bottles of liquor. That's what I think it's talking about. Canada Dry is the best ginger ale, hands down. Don't even ask me. I'll try other ginger ale. I want to like other ginger ale. I want to not have to buy, fucking 9-12 packs of Canada Dry at a time. I would like to be able to, mix it up a little bit, but that is my life. That is, I think it's bullshit that Canada Dry doesn't have a rewards program. I think it's stupid as hell that you can, all these people can choose ins and shit like that. And wives can make TikToks that are like, I turned my husband's ins from this into this. And they hold up like a Yeti cup or whatever. I think that's bullshit. And I want a Canada Dry rewards program. Anyways, back to this. He knew he didn't want to see the passenger side. He knew what was there. So this is the other thing I'm wondering. So he knew what was there. So is this a scene he's seen before? Is this... I think maybe it said he had a brother who might have passed. So is this his brother's car or something? Or is this his? Is this a accident he was involved in? Jack's feet moved despite his pleading. The seat came into view, malformed and bent around the trunk of the tree it was interlocked with. A low-hanging branch of the tree had punctured the passenger side windshield. The branch was massively thick at the base, as wide as the trunks of smaller trees. It came to a series of ragged points quickly, however, like it had been struck off by lightning. The furthest tip just reached the chest level of the car seat. Both the branch and the seat were coated with deep red liquid. It looked like the tree was reaching into the vehicle, its limb outstretched and covered in blood, like some woodland demon grasping for something just out of reach. From the splintered tips of the branch, the beginnings of the reddish pink flowers were blooming. Ooh. That is a cool fucking scene. That is cool imagery. I really like that. Jack stared in horror. There was no one in the seat, no one on the branch. There was supposed to be someone on the branch. He heaved again, but nothing came up. He watched a small droplet of the blood on the branch pooled at the end of one of its many prongs and fell onto the muddied leather. So is the tree bleeding? I'm kind of confused. Deep red liquid, like the woodland demon grasping for something just out of reach. From the splintered tips of the branch, the beginnings of reddish pink flowers were blooming. So there's reddish pink flowers blooming too. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Pulled at the end of one of its many prongs and fell onto the muddied leather. He nearly fell backwards as he turned from the wreck, landing on one knee in the wet grass. He thought, or he tried to, this didn't make sense. None of this had made sense. But this was something else. Should be something he could comprehend, but he couldn't. Are you saying Mother Horse Eyes is so good or Ross Road is so good that it makes you relapse? Either way, I like that as a selling point for the story. Bro, if you're talking about Mother Horse Eyes, bro, I was off acid for 20 years, but then I read Mother Horse Eyes and I just had to do some more tabs. I just had to drop. I just needed to see to see the mother. But yeah, no, this story is great too, and it's more out of solidarity for the crucible of shit that Jack is trying to wade through, that I'm like, I'm gonna have a Canada Dry in your honor, Jackie boy. Then Jack heard it, just over the chugging of the car's engine. He made out a familiar noise. It was faint, but clear, and coming from down the right side of the fork in the road. It rose and waned in intensity in regular intervals. An ambulance siren. Why not? Both LSD and alcohol probably go crazy. Yeah, no, they would. This story or Mother Horse Eyes would for sure melt your brain if you were tripping on acid. Okay, I'm gonna say this one last thing about Mother Horse Eyes because we've been talking about it, and then I'm gonna get back into the story. But one of the things that I found most compelling is how succinctly he describes how when you're on acid, and I can attest to this, I've taken acid before, you start noticing all these little synchronicities or coincidences, and you really do start to feel like everything's connected. And then because you feel like everything's connected, you're like, everything is ordained. And because you feel like everything's ordained, you're like, oh, there is a grand spirit. There is something making sense of all this. There is a God. So there is that whole sense that, you know, people take LSD or ayahuasca and they see God. But what I love about Mother Horse Eyes is how the dude isn't like religious. He doesn't believe in a higher power, but yet at the same time, he totally absolutely does, because he believes in Mother Horse Eyes and all this crazy shit that happened to him. And so it does this really cool thing where like he's skeptical of it, but at the same time he's seen the truth, and he's bending back and forth, the narrator is, and you can tell that he is like, he's able to describe that feeling so well because he's obviously, you know, dropped acid before and a lot, and so you could see how that would influence the way that, you know, like have a lasting effect on his brain, to where then he does feel like all these stories are connected over time that he's seen and all that shit. And then at the same time, it's like he I don't know, it's like he doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe that whatever, that he can find this higher power and everything that can make everything it can make all the trauma and all the shit that he's been through made sense. He doesn't believe that his life is gonna have meaning. essentially. You know what I mean? He doesn't believe that his suffering meant anything. And like, I don't know, that to me is so, like, for an acid trip and for the things that you think about on an acid trip, it's so fucking spot on that you're like, I don't know, to me, I go, could people really, like, I don't know, people are so different, we all have such different thoughts and whatever else. Could just one chemical really lead two completely different minds to such a exactly similar place? You know what I mean? And that alone makes me like, whoa, what the fuck? And yeah, the story's just a mind fuck, and honestly, I don't know. There needs to be some sort of a, you know, I'm really looking forward to Wendigoon's video, but there needs to be tons more people talking about that story. At the very least, at the very fucking least, there needs to be, like, I don't know, a fucking TED Talk. There we go. You know, I thought we were done with TED Talks as a society. I thought they kind of ran their course, but I would like, how about this? A series of TED Talks about Mother Horse Eyes. I would like one where they take, like, you know, an expert in psychedelics and he can do part of a TED Talk on it. I would like a theologist to do TED Talks on it. You know, I would like them to just do an entire series of TED Talks all about the themes and concepts of Mother Horse Eyes. There we go. I've said it. We're going to get back to Ross Road. Then Jack heard it just chugging over the cards. The sound of an ambulance. Jack grasped onto the sound and gripped it with all his mental intent. He normally despised the sounds of ambulances, but the understandability of such a commonplace sound was like a drug in his current state. He started putting some pieces together in his mind. If there was an ambulance, there was a reason they were here. They must have just come from this crash. They were probably driving the passengers to the hospital right now. They were getting away. Without even completing his thoughts, Jack shoved his fist against the ground and fell forward into a manic run. No, 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 please wait, hey, wait. His voice was hoarse as he coughed out the words. He realized he had been holding his breath since the sign had come into view. In a second, he was back onto the street, the pain in his body fully numb as he broke into a full sprint down the road. Stop! You have to stop, please! The siren sound got louder and clearer. It faded and returned at a regular interval, like it was one of those old school spinning tornado alarms. The fluctuation of volume helped Jack hone in on a distance and direction he was gaining. Somewhere in his mind he knew that didn't make any sense unless they heard him. Maybe they were actually stopping. Jack ran and ran until the sound of the ambulance was right on him. He was almost there. He kept going, and his heart sank as the sound began to fade. No, what? Jack coughed and nearly fell. His lungs were burning. His legs weren't ready for an extended sprint after spending an entire day unused. He caught his weight on the ball of his foot, nearly twisting his ankle and regaining his balance. Just as he began to push off again to keep up the chase, he stopped. He focused on the siren. Its oscillation made pinpointing the direction much easier. It was behind him? Jack turned, holding his chest as he wheezed for air. He started back in the direction he'd come, and sure enough, the sound grew louder. Soon, it was back to as loud as it has been. However, when he kept backtracking, he heard it began to fade again. Confused, exhausted, and delirious, Jack hobbled back toward the peak of the sound. His body had given him another burst of adrenaline for this chase, but it was clear that they were getting less effective every time. The pain was back, and bad. He could feel warm streams of fresh blood running down his lower back. The run must have reopened partially healed burns and wounds. Jack looked up and down the street, but didn't see anything. No light, no cars, just trees and the hill to his left. The sound was clear as day, right on top of him. With a deep breath, Jack closed his eyes and listened. It was coming from up the hill? He opened his eyes and looked toward it. 1 foot at a time, he stepped off the road and started a slow climb. Sure enough, with every step, the siren grew louder. That's it, Jack, he thought. Just find the ambulance. Just keep going. Don't think about the car, the diner, the branch, just find the ambulance. The trek up was agonizing. He could push the pain back further into his consciousness, but occasionally a foot would slip or catch on a root, causing him to tense to maintain balance and pushing shrapnel deeper into the burned skin on his back. The incline of the hill grew steeper and steeper as he reached the top. Soon, Jack was doing more climbing than walking up the hill, using all fours for stability. Eventually, a few feet above his head, Jack could see a crash that vanished out of sight. The ambulance was louder than ever now, and clearly coming from just over the bend. Jack dug his knee into the ground and heaved his head up over the precipice, grabbing a tuft of grass from the top as support. The hill did in fact level off. The thin tree coverage that had been Jack's faithful companion during his ascent tapered off over the edge as well. Stretched in front of him was a largely barren clearing in an otherwise dense woods. It was ovular, stretching out further ahead of him than to his left or right. The ground didn't have the same characteristic brownish-green coloring of fallen leaves like the rest of the forest. No, in place of stray twigs and ferns was long grass. It was a ghostly green color, reflecting more of what little illumination the moon provided. The reflection, paired with the lack of tree coverage, made the whole field seem to glow when compared to the dark forest that encompassed it. Peculiarly, the long grass was not upright, but rather every blade was laid gently on its side. All the grass in a given area was stretched in the same direction, toward the middle of the clearing. If you were to walk the circumference, you would see the grass angle slowly but surely rotate with you to ensure it was always pointing you back to its center. The smoothness and uniformity of it all made the grass look almost like silk, intentionally placed into a large pattern. That's just, I mean, it's eerie, but it's also just kind of cool. You know what I mean? Same with the tree and the flowers, like reaching around the car. Like, I don't know, maybe I should be more scared, but I also just really like it. I'm like, it's a really, really cool imagery. So, directly in the middle of the field, maybe 40 or so feet from Jack, stood a sign, terribly familiar. The large yellow diamond shape was supported by two metal posts and had the same imposing double-sided black arrow painted across its face. The cold industrial look of the street sign was only made more unsettling by the fact that it was firmly situated far away from any road. It stood in defiance of the greenery around it. Pinned to the front of the sign and partially covering the arrow was a deer. Oh, the deer's back. Interesting. No, Jack realized, the deer. What blood was left in the carcass had dripped out of its multiple wounds and stained the bottom of the red sign. The animal's head hung lazily down over its chest. The same dried and exposed section of bone and skin was still there, only a stump remaining of what had once been a healthy antler. The animal's front legs were bent in an unnatural position. Beast's back was up against the sign, with its underside facing out towards Jack. Its front legs had been forced straight out in either direction, like a man spreading his arms for a hug. Whatever had forced the legs out like that had completely destroyed its shoulder joints. Bone had clearly broken, and the right shoulder skin had even torn, showing a mix of gray and pink and white flesh and bone. The ball fully removed from its intended socket. The back legs were not as forcefully bent, but angled slightly inward so that the feet overlapped below the rest of the deer. Near the bottom corner of the sign, Jack recognized the shape. The deer had been pinned to the road. The deer had been pinned to the road sign in a mock crucifixion. He could see the back hooves had something run through them, pinning them to the sheet metal. Each front hoof had also punctured and held against the signage, with one position in each with one hoof positioned in each head, dual-sided. This alone would have been enough to leave Jack non-verbal, with fear and disquiet. There was something else, standing a few feet to the side of the sign crucifix, just obscured enough that he had overlooked it. Was a figure. Back was to him. Was what looked like a young girl. From her size, she couldn't have been more than 8 or 9. She wore an old, worn sundress. The colors had long since faded into the mix of grays and blacks, and it was adorned with a pattern of flowers, smudged in dirt and muck. Whatever this thing was, similarity to a child ended at the shoulders. There was no neck, no head. In their place, a wooden pole. So there was no head and no neck. The little girl from the shoulders down. In their place, a wooden pole a foot or so long extended straight up out of her clavicle. Wrapped around the post were thick black cords. They looked rubber, like the casing on power lines. Where they met with the body, flowed directly into the flesh. They were haphazardly placed Some entered the shoulders, others the back. Near the top of the pole, all the wires converged into a small black box that slowly spun a siren horn atop it. Oh, fuck. Okay, so that... Because part of me is like, he's just following the siren, but it's just gonna lead to, like, the next thing, which he came back to the sign against the top of the hill. But to me, I'm like, the siren is not just gonna be a noise he heard, right? Now the fact that it's a little girl robot animatronic thing that has a siren atop it, I mean, that's fucking cool. Not only is it cool, I mean, it's creepy, it's... I don't know. To me, I'm more just like... Each visual in this is like very cool and like hardcore and metal. But then it's like you have some crazy, like, I don't know, apocalyptic, like, siren girl. And she's literally a siren too. And the fact that, like, I don't know if he's supposed to be on the Ross Road. I don't know if there's a way for him to get off the road if he continued. But it literally lured him from the area with the car crash or whatever. And so it's interesting, you know, it's like, it's interesting on multiple levels, and it's just, I mean, yeah, it's just a creepy fucking visual. And now I'm like, is this creature gonna talk? Is it literally just a siren? You know, I'm ready. Like, at this point in the story, we had this stuff with Prim earlier, the waitress at the diner, and I mean, obviously we know how that turned out, so I'm not saying it's like, it's necessarily good if he meets with people on the road and talks to them, but I am, at this point in the story, ready for there to be more characters or more entities, even if they're not straight up human, more entities introduced that Jack can interact with. But at this point, like, I already thought it was kind of not weird, but kind of funny that, like, he was like, oh, once he found the diner, he was like, thank God, and now everything's gonna be okay, and now I can get a tow and all this stuff. But I'm like, at this point, you need to start like questioning. If there is someone you can talk to, Jack, you need to be like, what cosmic entity are you? What do I need to do? Clearly this is some sort of an odyssey, a crucible, you know, I that I meant to suffer, but, like, you know, where, just be like, where's my next trial? We're in the 7th circle of hell. Can you show me to the gate to the 8th circle, please? You know, like, what's next? I don't know. To me, yeah, I realized he's dazed and, like, he's not even necessarily in his right mind, but I'm ready for Jack to, like, interrogate and just be like, what the fuck is this place? I'm ready for that, you know? I'm ready for him to have that conversation with someone, even if it's someone who's like, I don't know, or this is just the road, mister, you know. Yeah, Siren Head. Dear Jesus. I like that the siren head's spinning too. I think that's so creepy. Jack stared. His eyes had just barely peeked over the precipice. His body was hung in a sort of mid-pull-up position, his knuckles white from the effort of gripping the earth he used as leverage. But Jack did not dare move. He didn't breathe. He just stared, mortified, as the siren spun atop the body of a child. as it swung toward him. As it swung toward him, Jack felt the intensity of the ambulance sound increase. The rotors of the machine swung the head back. The rotors of the machine swung the head back around, and as it circled, the sound died off ever so slightly with the change in direction. There's only so much a person can see and effectively process. If enough pressure is exerted over a short enough period of time and in foreign enough circumstances, we all revert to a spectator. Jack felt as such, like he was watching from deep inside his body. We operate in a world we think we largely understand, one of blacks and whites. How would you expect someone living in a monochrome universe to react to the color red? Scream in willful confusion? Stare in reverent fear? Why expect any more from us? The girl was walking toward the deer. Jack could see that with each step it took, the flattened grass at its feet would change. From the soil beneath, deep brownish maroon roots would spring up. They interlocked and wove together in braids, following in the footsteps of where the girl had been. Once they slowed, each root sprouted like tiny branches that bloomed bright pink and red flowers. Each flower's petals curved as they spread out from the recessed yellow center. From a recessed yellow center. As she walked, the girl's siren continued to spin, the same ambulance wail emanating from it. She stopped just in front of the deer. Jack's grip on the ground had dug too deep into the dirt at this point. He could feel whatever siren or whatever series of roots and connected tissues the dirt had been relying on for support start to rip under all the weight he was putting on it. Slowly and carefully, he lifted his other hand to spread the weight across the ledge. Far too much tension, he lifted his leg and attempted to silently bury it into the ground of the hill he was positioned on to relieve some stress. The girl stood in front of the deer for a few seconds, unmoving. After a moment, Jack noticed motion along the ground. Shifting his eyes, he could see the intertwining roots that followed behind were now moving ahead. They burrowed in and out of the ground until they reached the metal post holding up the sign. They began spiraling around and around it, splitting off like vines climbing a garden arbor. As they reached the yellow metal, they continued up along the face of it. The roots dug into the metal and punctured through, only to pierce back out again from the backside soon after, much like they had with the ground below. Eventually, the vines diverged, splitting into countless smaller strands, like wooden fingers slithering along and through the metal. As each one met with the flesh of the deer, they did not slow. The roots burrowed in with no effort and began snaking in and out of the meat, twisting the skin around as they braided and unbraided with one another. The deer was punctured and skewered in countless places as the roots spread through it like they were searching earth for life-saving water. Out from the deer's stomach came 2 larger vines. They reached out and met with the deer's lopsided head, lifting its chin up to look ahead. The roots slowed and eventually became still. Only then did they start blooming, same deep pink flowers all across the animal, making a bizarre, grotesque display of color against the matted, rotting fur. Jack watched in discontented rapture. Okay, this is the thing. Is he up the hill at this point? Like, it says that he changed his weight and he just kind of peeking over and seeing all this. But I'm like, bro, don't fall back down the hill. Get up here, because clearly some shit is going down. And what I'm just worried is that, like, he's going to fall back down the hill, you know? I don't know. Maybe that's what's supposed to happen or what needs to happen for the story to work. Who knows? But I'm just kind of like, I know he's watching in shock and he doesn't want the things to see him or whatever's happening. But at this point, I'm kind of like, bro, get up the fucking hill, you know? Anyways, sorry, just a note I had in my head, but, Jack watched in discontented rapture. The rusted metal alarm atop the girl's body continued to spin, spreading its siren sound through the trees around him. The girl still stood in front of the now root-riddled carcass. She raised her left arm, grasping the deer's remaining antler. Her fingers looked ill-equipped for the job. The child's hand and short fingers struggled to wrap even halfway around the full-grown deer's thick, channeled bone. With one quick motion, the girl's hand twisted, shot downward. The antler fractured along its base at the twist and came tearing off at the swing of the arm. The length of the bone crested as long as it could, causing the vines that had lifted the deer's chin to push against its head's downward pressure and puncture through its mandible, extruding the tiniest bit of root through the top of its decaying snout. Zzz, zzz, zzz. Jack's phone. It was ringing loudly. Ah, shit. So that was just part 3, damn. That was pretty crazy. That was pretty fucking nuts. So, I mean, we know his phone is now ringing. Someone's now calling him. Yeah, so this next part will be part 4 of 5. What does it all mean? What does the girl mean? What are the flowers? Is the car crash? It did seem like he knew what the car crash was, so I'm guessing maybe he crashed that car, or maybe that's the crash his brother died in. I don't know. Siren Head is pretty awesome though. Siren Head is a pretty metal, and I'm not somebody who throws around like, bro, that's metal a lot, but that is a pretty like metal monster. Ah, shit. I just clicked. Okay. This story, that part of the story definitely needs upvote. All parts of the story needs more upvotes. This is it had such a and I don't want to say this. It had a slow start. I was gonna say such a slow start, but it wasn't that it was such a slow start. It was more just that it was in that first part of the story, it wasn't like just trying to immediately throw you into supernatural. Like, it was definitely trying to take its time to get you to the point where you're like, okay, yeah, supernatural shit is definitely happening or could potentially for sure be happening. And I do like that because now in part 3 where we know the story's gone, we're like, oh fuck, so it's definitely worth it, and it definitely has these payoffs in the later parts. But yeah, like in terms of just man, yeah, I did not, when it had like the non-Euclidean and then the deer being dragged off, I just did not think that the story was gonna go like here to with all these parts to where now, I mean, now I'm literally like, what's the symbolism in every little thing, whether it's the sign, whether it's the deer crucified to the sign, whether it's girl with the siren head, whether it's Prim in the diner, and the mop being shoved through her stomach. I'm like, what does it all mean? Is Jack the deer? Is Prim actually his mother? And Jack's mother, hates his father, and so therefore hates him, and so that's why Prim stabbed her stomach, or all this shit. Yeah, thanks, Keith. Thank you, man. Thank you for stopping by. It was good chatting with you, dude. Now I'm just like, bro, I don't, it's so dense in terms of like every little thing that happening that I'm just like, what does it all mean? What does it mean? Does it mean, does it mean that, yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Rude Dude? I mean, I think you've read the whole story, so you probably know more. But yeah, I'm just a little bit flabbergasted, as I was with the last part too, but I'm more just like, I don't know. I don't want to like overread into shit, but at the same time, I do think every little thing means something. What are the flowers? What's what exactly are they? The roots seem to be like following the girl, and what are they? So. Alright, I don't know if I'm gonna... How long is this part? I mean, I think every part is pretty meaty. I just, part of me wants to finish it, but also if you're still here, Rude Dude, like, I also want to read, I want to keep reading No Strings Attached, so... And each part of Ross Road is so rich that I'm... Well, maybe I'll keep spreading it out and keep pacing myself with it. I'm really enjoying it. Yeah. You're pretty content with what you understood at the end. I don't want to spoil. Yeah, and I wasn't asking you to spoil it. I'm more just okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. You're just like, the story, the story doesn't just throw a bunch of shit out there that seems symbolic only for it not to be, or only for nothing to make sense. Like, the parts that need to make sense, the parts that maybe don't make sense, or not don't make sense, but the parts that, you know, seem a little like just ethereal, or like a girl with a siren head might just be a creepy girl with a siren head. I don't know. And that's cool. That's one of the fun parts about horror, is that it's like, yes, there can be a lot of symbolism and stuff, but also sometimes you just get really fun, cool visuals that you're just like, holy shit. So, all right. So having said that, should we move on to your story, Rude Dude? Since you're here, I'd like to read it. I'd like to, since you're taking the time to, be a viewer with my live stream, I'd like to, I'd like to get into that, and I will finish Ross Road. I'm taking my time. I just feel weird because I've never spaced out a story this much over so many live streams that I'm like, I don't know. Am I gonna? I don't think this is gonna happen, but I'm like, am I gonna piss off the author because they're just like, God, it took you 5 live streams to finish my story? You know what I mean? But okay, all I can say is that the story is impossible to predict where it goes next. It is such an abstract journey. By all means, go ahead and continue with part 4. I mean, honestly, I'm considering it, but here's the thing. We got part 4. And then let's just look at part 5. Offensive language. Oh no. Okay. Yeah, I think even if I just kept powering through, I don't know if I would even for sure finish it. So, because I'm not that fast of a reader. And you're here, so let's do no strings attached. Part 3. And how many parts is this story total? Is it 5 parts too? I think they both are, right? Yeah, okay. And I'm farther along in this story. Yeah, right, because this is part 4. Oh, okay, Keith. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were the Ross Road author. Sorry, Keith. So thank you for stopping by too. Then, with you spreading out like you are, I'm super happy you enjoy it. Do no strings. Okay, cool. So we'll do no strings now. And yeah, I'll work on finishing no strings for you guys here. But thank you guys both for stopping by. Obviously, don't feel, just because I'm reading your story, don't feel like you have to watch my stream live. But I do love to have you authors here because I feel like I feel like it gives me a little bit special of an insight. And if you want to answer, if you want to, like, when you hear me speculating or stuff, if you want to be like, just wait to see what happens next or whatever, I think that dynamic is a lot of fun. Like, I love like when Wendigoon watches, like, he does his live streams and he'll like watch the new episodes of like the Mandela catalog or like the back rooms or something, and he'll watch those like with the creators. And I just think that's a lot of fun because the writers never tell him like, well, this actually just symbolizes this and blah blah blah. Like they never, that's not the point. But I have to imagine that it's fun for you guys to just see how I'm processing the story and stuff, and it's fun that we can have a back and forth. So I appreciate it. I'm not missing this for anything. Laugh my ass. It's so cool being here live. Yeah, that's my point. I said it in way too many words, but that's the point. It is very cool to be here live, and it is cool to be here with. So let's see. From what I remember, and it's only been about a week, but we've got Moira, and Moira is, I think it's confirmed at this point. She is a spider woman who can take the form of a normal woman, but also is a disgusting, creepy, forget what color she was as a spider. I don't know if it said. But on top of that too, she seems to be feasting on our narrator's memories, as well as like maybe just cognition. And what I liked about the story in the beginning is the narrator does seem to be a little, what's the word here? Naive in terms of his dating and stuff like that. But then just from the first point he's with Moira, he's just bought in hook, line, and sinker. And he's like, she loves me. She wants to bear my children. We're going to be together forever. And our narrator has this friend that's like, be careful, blah, blah, blah. And our narrator's pretty much just like, you don't know what you're talking about. She's not going to eat me, I don't know. Those are just the overall vibes. As anyone who's had a friend who's like maybe dated somebody who you don't fully trust or whatever, but it's like you can't talk any sense into your boy. They're just they're just out for the count. They're attached hook, line, and sinker. And now essentially I believe at this point in the story they're like living together, but he needs to go up in the attic because there's a dripping. And yeah, there's other stuff, as I said in my other streams, he went out in the woods with Moira and he was gonna jump off a waterfall with her or something, and he broke his head, and so he got hurt in the process. And then also there was all these cocoons of web things that are basically shit or people or animals that she's eating, I assume. So, and it says that there's the smell of death. So yeah, that's where we are kind of at with no strings attached here. I want to kind of go part 3. I want to kind of remember. Yeah, Moira's leaving, right? That's it. Then after a pause, her voice grew more solemn. But that doesn't change the fact that I have to go away for a few days. There are still things I need to take care of. You're coming back, right? My desperation cut through her sentence before she could finish. Her serious expression cracked, giving way to a playful smile as she stifled a laugh. sooner than you think, she said, tilting her head toward me with an assuring smile. Now that I'm alone in the house again, I'm starting to think she can't come back soon enough. I've convinced myself that I'm hearing things again, strange, unsettling sounds. More convincingly, the dripping has returned. Yeah, that's the other thing, is there's dripping coming from the attic, and he heard and felt all this stuff before, and again, it was when Moira was gone. So I'm guessing when she's gone, that's when she turns in her spider form, and she's like dicking around up in the attic, you know? She's like, whatever, preparing meals, or I don't know, whatever spider creatures do, you know, shit like that. Now there appears to be a source, a massive round, moldy stain on the ceiling right in the middle of the dining room. Finally threw out the shriveled flowers and put the empty vase on the table to try to contain the mess. I don't know why, but I feel like that table has some personal significance to me. More significant than Moira's flowers. I need something tangible and rational to explain away my paranoia. I have to go up there. I need to find the source of the dripping. It hasn't rained in weeks, so it has to be a leaky pipe. I will update my findings. It shouldn't be long until my next post. Alright, so that's where we kind of left off. Moira's gone, but, you know, she's not. She's probably just upstairs. And yeah, that's where we left off. So let's get into it. Let's do it. Against my better judgment, I decided to go up there. The dripping stain was all the evidence I needed to convince myself that it wasn't just in my head. I climbed into the attic using a flimsy folding ladder. As soon as I pushed open the hatch into the crawl space, foul stench hit me like a punch in the nose. It was the rancid smell of wet neck brace, amplified tenfold. I slammed the hatch shut and nearly vomited from the top of the ladder. Swallowing back the nausea, I forced myself to open it again and cautiously poked my head inside. The cracks in the ceiling were golden, with sunlight tracing golden lines along the dusty wooden beams. The space was dim, but I could still make out my surroundings. My eyes watered from the stench, but I braced myself and climbed inside, pushing forward through the thick, rotten air. One thing I was kind of thinking is like, and this might have been mentioned early in the stories, I think she might have like a pheromone thing that she does when she's in her human form. And so I'm wondering if, like, I don't know, when she's in her spider form, or like whatever area she's in otherwise, like if she's not actively using that thing, like she just does smell like death. But when, you know, similar to the moth mother creature in whatchamacalled, in what was it called, where we weren't allowed to talk to women, one of the most recent CreepCast episodes, you know, similar sort of thing where like disgusting creature or disgusting smell, but it gets covered up when she's in her human form. I tried to straighten up, but my head smacked against a wooden beam. Hunching over, I painfully realized I was too tall to stand properly. My field of view was restricted to the dusty floorboards beneath me. Despite my limited vision, I pressed on. Dusty boxes and abandoned cobwebs crowded the space. The boxes were filled with things I had no memory of, but that was not what I was looking for. Something near the entrance caught my eye. I almost mistook it for a wine-stained wedding dress, crumpled and forgotten. But as I reached out, my fingers met something hard and smooth. Nothing like fabric. It felt brittle, like the shell of some massive insect. Oh, she's shedding. She sheds off her skin. Ugh, gross. A husk, abandoned and left to dry out, stitched together in a shape that shouldn't exist. Only a faint, musty scent clung to it. I knew it wasn't the source of the stain or the smell. That came from above the dining room at the end of the hallway, so I pushed deeper and the smell intensified. My stomach was in knots at this point. My heartbeat forced its way up my tight throat and pounded against my head. That's when I saw it, the source of the smell. It looked like a pile of dirty laundry, but it wasn't clothes, it was skin. An unmistakable pile of skin. It was lying there, like a fleshy, rotten egg yolk in the middle of a puddle of white ooze. I couldn't bring myself to come near it. But I swear I saw something familiar, a birthmark of an unfinished butterfly. Oh shit, I think Moira has a birthmark, right? See, that's the problem with reading these stories in in sections, is that I'm pretty sure she has a birthmark, but you know. A sudden sense of dread filled me. The neck brace held my head down like a deer grazing, and I can only describe the feeling I had as a deer picking up a sign of bloodlust before getting pounced on by a lion. So he's stuck and just... I want to get this scene right in my head. He's stuck in the attic. He can't stand up straight, but he has a neck brace on. So he's kind of got to like walk through the attic, you know, like this. And then, you know, he comes to this thing and he sees the skin on the ground or whatever, with the birthmark. And then because he's hunched over with his face at the ground, he's like, the neck brace held my head down like a deer grazing, and I can only describe the feeling I had as a deer picking up on a sign of bloodlust before getting pounced on by a lion. So it's that whole idea of, you're like, something's right behind me, isn't it? Or like, I'm about to have a really shitty day, aren't I? That's so funny. I love it. I had to get out, but more importantly, I had to see what was around me. The doctors warned me of the consequences of removing the neck brace too early, but at that point, it felt like life or death. My hands fumbled with the straps, tearing at the fastenings with frantic urgency. The brace came loose, and the weight of my own head crashed down like a bowling ball. So now he's like... Blinding pain shot through my neck, sending a wave of nausea rolling over me. My vision swam, but I didn't care. I had to see for myself. My plan had the opposite effect. As soon as I removed the brace, I could feel my vision fading, but that only sharpened my hearing. Okay. Again, this is very funny and creepy, but I'm also like, I guess he can't maybe because he's in the attic and whatever, he can't fully look at the stuff that he wants to look at, and so like maybe it's up into the thing, and so he's like, he can't really, you know. So maybe that's why he took it off. But I'm also like, yeah, bro, don't take off the neck brace. Just like, I don't know, squat down, lay down, do whatever you got to do. But I guess it's like he was worried that something's about to pounce on him. So from the far corner of the room, I could hear the familiar clattering of keys on a typewriter. It was quickly approaching. I spun around on my heels and made a desperate and painful break for the hatch. The sound behind me matched my pace perfectly, as if some unseen narrator was typing out my every step. My foot scrambled to find purchase on the flimsy ladder, while my head rolled frantically on my shoulders. Searching for whatever was chasing me. So he's looking around, but maybe he still can't fully hold his head up, so. But it remained out of sight, lurking in the dark spots of my vision. Before I could begin my careful descent, gravity yanked me down. Perhaps my foot failed to find the ladder, or the ladder couldn't support my sudden weight. Either way, the ground found me all the same. Its unbearable hardness threatening. The ground found me all the same, its unbearable hardness threatening to support the weight of the world. Pain exploded through me. My leg popped and my head cracked against the wall. This is maybe one of the... I haven't watched a lot of like Three Stooges, but this is like the most stoogiest horror story character that I've ever read, and I'm so here for it. I love it. I love that despite the fact that a fucking giant spider succubus creature is living with, stalking and hunting this guy, and like whatever, carving out his memories and feasting on his memories and whatever, of all those things, this guy is still his own worst enemy. He is still, despite having a succubus spider creature for a girlfriend, who, by the way, he loves. He's not like begrudgingly in this relationship. He wants to be with her. He's still, with all that, the most dangerous thing in his life is himself. And it is his, I guess you could call naive willingness to whatever, still stay with this creature, but I love it. I'm here for it. I think it's fucking awesome. I love that he now has a broken leg, neck, and potentially head. Like now, if he broke his neck just before, now he's cracked his head against the wall too. Fresh coffee and some story time. Let's go. Jesus peace. What up? Maybe I should make some coffee. That sounds good. Anyways, I don't have time now. As I lay across the hallway floor, the last thing I saw before the pain swallowed me was a row of 8 cold, curious eyes peering at me from the hole in my ceiling. I woke up once again in a dark haze. For a moment, I thought I was back in the hospital. The all too familiar sensation of IV tubes wrapped around my arms and strangely my legs too. The heavy blanket draped over me wasn't coarse anymore. Everything felt soft, damp, and sticky against my skin. Ah, shit. I opened my eyes and was met with a dark room. My room. No fluorescent lights or humming of hospital machines. The only sound was a distant dripping. The sterile smell of the hospital was replaced by a pungent stench that clung to the thick air, a musk of mildew and sour sweet scent of decay. I tried to move, but the pain was instant and overwhelming. The dull ache of my neck was now accompanied by something sharper, a searing pain that shot up my leg, through my hip, and up my spine, colliding with the raw throbbing in my skull. I wasn't moving. I couldn't. The weight of my neck brace was the last thing I noticed. I had grown so accustomed to it that it felt like an extension of my brittle body, but something was different. Thick strands of silk had been carefully woven around it, reinforcing its grip, or perhaps ensuring I couldn't reach the buckle again. Ah. But the patch of silk stretched tightly over my mouth. Had only one purpose to stifle my cries. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, a voice, soft and tender. You shouldn't struggle. Panic muffles erupted from my mouth but were caught by the mask. I recognized the voice of the old lady from the hospital. Had my dream visitor finally come to visit me again? The woman stood next to my bed. Slowly she reached over and turned on the bed lamp. She wanted me to see her. She walked over to the foot of my bed, and when she turned around, I could see her face in the pale light. It was the face of Moira. She looked impossibly aged and tired. Her beautiful brown ember eyes were now glazed with a cataract gray, clouded and distant. The sight of her filled me with the strange mix of calm and confusion. She could see it on my face. I don't have long, and I can't answer any of your questions. But it's time for me to be honest with you. Her voice sounded remorseful and sincere despite being rushed. I know I must look hideous, but this brittle form is the best I could do to help ease you into the realization of what I truly am. While she was speaking, I noticed her slowly undressing. Flashes of memories from the waterfall rushed into my mind, and like a spot the difference puzzle, I was forced to examine the ways in which her body had aged. At that moment, a tear ran down my face and soaked into the silk. I didn't care how she looked. She was still beautiful to me. This dude loves Moira. What can you say? You can't choose who you love, even if it's a, carnivorous spider woman. And brother, let me tell you, there are a few of those out there. Let me tell you. You can't help who you love, She was still beautiful to me. I wish I could have told her that. But more importantly, I wish I could say the same about what happened next. She wanted to say more, but all she let out was a woeful, tragic shriek as she fell onto her hands and knees. I almost jolted out of the bed to console her, but the pain kept me rooted. I was carefully suspended in a half-sitting, half-laying position against my headrest. I couldn't do anything except watch in horror as the woman of my dreams transformed into the creature that haunted my nightmares. It started with a noise, a disgusting popping and cracking that reminded me of twigs in a campfire. The back of her spine bulged and pushed out against her wrinkled skin. Her face was looking down, but I could still see the pain plastered across it. Sorry. As painful as this was to watch, I could not imagine the feeling of experiencing it firsthand. At least that was what I thought, until the woman in front of me slowly tore open like a wet paper bag. It was clear to me then that what I had considered to be Moira was merely a decorative shell for the creature inside her. The tear began in the middle of her back. It started as a subtle bulge that immediately exploded into 4 large, bony tentacles that ruptured outward, connected by wet, rotating joints where her rib should have been. Ugh. Started to bulge out. 4 large, bony tentacles that ruptured outward, connected. Ugh. So it's, I don't know, the way, it didn't necessarily say this, but the way I pictured that in my head was like her rib cage like is like the legs, and then they like expand out of the rib cage, connected by wet rotating joints where her rib should have been. The 4 legs were covered in some kind of thick, slimy mucus dripping onto the ground, and they took root and quickly lifted her body. Then her arms and legs elongated and stretched to the same impossible length before Moira expelled the remaining limbs from her back with a pained cry, like a mother giving birth. Her arms and legs deflated and fell flat on the ground like empty wet tube socks. I'm not sure how, but from somewhere inside, a swollen abdomen appeared, much larger than the rest of her body. Now, the only part still wearing Moira's skin was its head, dragged itself up by the foot of the bed, and I watched in horror. I watched in horror as Moira's mouth opened and from inside 2 smaller legs carefully protruded outward, like fingers feeling in the darkness. They pushed from within, and without any semblance of grace, her face fell into my lap, revealing behind it the same creature whose face I knew all too well. I looked down in horror. I couldn't bear to look into those eyes again. Then I saw it. The shape finally made sense to me. It was not the watercolor butterfly wings I originally thought, but instead it was a blood-red hourglass painted across a pale white canvas of the creature's abdomen. Oh, shit. Okay. Then she spoke, mimicking the same voice as earlier. The first few words were noticeably distorted before finding the right cadence and pitch. It was her voice. Moira's voice was perfectly clear and gentle as I remembered. The silk spun is meant to savor the taste. Instead, you are wrapped up for your own benefit. There was a long pause as she wanted her words to take their course and sink in before she continued. Tonight is the first time you see me hunger for blood, but I will not harm you. I could feel panic rising in my body. I didn't know what she meant, and my arms and legs started to punch and kick involuntarily. The struggle was equal parts painful and fruitless. I asked you not to struggle. Can't you make this easier on me? My struggle ceased when I heard the pain in her voice. There, stay calm. I have to leave you for now, but I'll be back, the way you remember me. She took another long pause, choosing her words carefully. I'm sorry for what I have done and what I am yet to do. I can't control the hunger. It's consuming me. And with that, she slowly turned away. I quietly retreated into the hallway. I sat there in my silky prison for the rest of the night, not daring to sleep. I was dreading Moira's return. My mind raced to make sense of those cryptic words she had left me with. Morning came sooner than expected. I wonder who she's gonna eat. Clearly she gotta go eat someone or something. She's been taking care of his clumsy ass, so she hasn't been able to feast. Okay, and that's what I was wondering. Is it Joshua, his friend? But at least not yet. It hasn't happened yet. Morning came sooner than expected. It was still dark out, but I could hear the birds waking up, along with their peaceful chirping. I heard the sound of Joshua's car pulling up to my driveway. A fleeting spark of hope filled me before I realized the literal spider's den he was about to walk into. Excuse me. Before I could even process it, Joshua was already climbing the old wooden steps. For a split second, I considered screaming, forcing out any sound I could despite the silk smothering my mouth. But then I hesitated, my breathing catching to my throat. If I stayed quiet, maybe, just maybe, he would leave. Maybe he'd think I wasn't home. My frantic thoughts were cut short by 3 loud thuds on the front door. Hey man, open up. Moira called. She asked me to check on you. It sounded important. My heart sank as I processed his words. Moira had called him over. For what reason? Her cryptic apology was beginning to make sense. Come on, man, I know you're home, he said in his typical self-assured tone. You're always home, he added, his voice softer this time, almost like his inner thoughts had slipped out. He knocked again, but silence was the only response. Through the door, I heard him sigh, his voice dropping into a frustrated mumble as he stepped away. Where the hell did that old bat put the spare key? The square rock, or was it the round one? Ugh. I had no clue what he was talking about. Old bat? Did he mean Moira? Did he know about her illness? From outside the window, I heard the faint sound of rock scraping against rock, followed by a brief celebratory exclamation. Aha, gotcha! The sharp clink echoed down the hall. A key. There was a spare key outside? I couldn't remember that, but Joshua sure did. At this point, my silence had boiled over into a muffled symphony of frantic screaming, pleading for Joshua to leave before it was too late. In the end, my noises only served to guide him deeper toward his demise. As he entered my dark room, he quickly flicked on the light, and the sudden brightness blinded me for a second. Just as my eyes adjusted, I saw her. She was nestled in the once dark corner of my room, right above the doorway where Joshua had walked in. I don't even want to think about how long she had been sitting there, just watching me. Joshua quickly made his way to my bedside, clearly confused by the situation I was in. He placed his hands on the thick fibers, tearing off a piece. It clung to his hand as he inspected it. What the fuck is this? He looked at it in disbelief. This is exactly what I meant when I said the ladies love silk sheets. This isn't exactly what I meant when I said ladies love silk sheets. Then Moira started moving, slow and deliberate, careful not to make a sound. I stared at her, whipping my head up and down as much as the brace would allow, hoping my gaze would guide Joshua to see what I was seeing. He didn't. His eyes were fixed on me. His hands desperately searched for a grip on the webbing covering my mouth. I knew it was pointless. The tightly woven strands were too thick, and the time was too short. It all happened so fast. She had closed the distance between herself and Joshua and was now on the ceiling directly above him. Her eyes pinned me in place more than her webs ever could. My body gave up the struggle. All I could feel was Joshua shaking my limp body, as if trying to wake me from a terrible nightmare. Slowly, the two round mandibles, which once seemed almost human in the way they moved. Slowly, the two round mandibles, which once seemed almost human in the way they moved when she spoke, broke apart. From behind them, two needle-sharp fangs gleamed in the light, their blackened tips glistening with dewdrops of venom. One by one, the droplets fell right down onto him. Blissfully unaware of the dripping, his face lit up with an idea. "Stay here, I'm going to get a knife," he said, shaking his head as he realized the irony of telling me to stay put. He quickly spun around and ran off towards the kitchen. "Run, Joshua! Run! Run! Get away!" Moira followed him like a shadow. All I heard were the sounds of Joshua rummaging through drawers, their slamming followed by a frustrated grunt. Then I heard Joshua say something that made me tremble with fear as I let out a desperate, muffled scream. "Man, you weren't kidding about this dripping. It's so annoying." The frustration was building in his voice. I heard the sound of metal clanging as he flung open the last drawer, followed by a brief silence shattered by a scream that sliced through the house. Joshua had always been my knight in shining armor, and I was just the helpless princess. I guess that made Moira the dragon in this twisted fairy tale. The thing is, I never thought Joshua feared anything until I heard his scream. It wasn't just fear, it was raw, primal terror, so violent the sound echoed even after he hit the floor. Thud, a loud crash followed by a skittering, a pained yell, and a hellish screech. I almost lost hope, but before I knew it, Joshua was standing in my room again. He had shut the door behind him and leaned against it for a moment. As soon as he moved away, I saw the blood stain smeared across the door. It bit me. That fucking thing bit me. But I still managed to get in a good gash before it ran off. Fucking coward. His face was a mix of anger and determination. I then noticed the kitchen knife gleaming in his bloody hand. The blade was stained with a strange black ooze. I know it sounds insane, but in that moment, I couldn't help but feeling strangely concerned if Moira was okay. It was an intrusive thought, one that made me immediately feel guilty for even thinking it. Yeah, bro, Joshua is your only true friend. And, bros before hoes, as they say, Joshua's the only one who really cares about you. Moira, I mean, she hasn't eaten you yet, so maybe she does care about you, but if she's gonna kill your best friend Joshua in front of you, it's clear that she doesn't care about you that much, okay? If she really cared about you, she would go like Dexter style with it. If she really wanted to be with you, she would like just try to eat murderers or animals or, pedophiles. She could do all that stuff and not kill your best friend in front of you. But it seems like she cares more about feasting and keeping you as like a slave, as a whatever clumsy impressionable slave. And yeah, that seems like what she wants, and she wants to murder anyone close to you, so she doesn't love you. Joshua stumbled over to my bedside. And with one quick, careful motion, sliced through the mask covering my mouth. I took a deep, panicked breath before explaining, That thing is Moira. She used me as bait to lead you here. You have to get the fuck out of here. I don't care who you think that thing is. I'm not leaving you here with it. I don't think she'll hurt me, but you aren't safe here. I pleaded with him to leave. But Joshua wasn't listening. The whole time I'd been begging him to leave, he stayed focused on the task of cutting me loose. He would have carried me out even if I begged him to leave without me. Suddenly, the clawed cutting slowed down to a crawl, and I was still far from free. Joshua only managed to get one arm free. Why are you slowing down? I asked. I can't feel my legs, he said, his speech beginning to slur. Suddenly, Joshua slumped onto his knees, his arms falling limp onto my bed. He looked me dead in the eyes as I struggled to keep him upright with one arm. He whispered something. Under the pillow. His words were cut off as his jaw slackened, dropping the rest of his head. He was just lying there, staring at me, completely paralyzed. I just stared at him in disbelief. The helpless silence followed. I heard the quiet fumbling of the door handle. It took a few tries, but eventually the door swung open. The rest of the room was a blur to me. All I could focus on was Joshua's cold, arctic eyes staring up at me, holding back a wave of tears. I stayed fixed on his gaze as Moira's figure patiently entered the room. Tears pooled up in my eyes as Joshua slowly closed his. The wave he had tried to hold back washed over me, and I was drowning in tears. I whispered quiet lies, promising he'd be okay. Joshua's body slid off the bed, my hand still gripping his limp fingers. I tried my best to hold on, but I knew Moira wouldn't allow it. I watched through my tears as she carefully wrapped him up and dragged him out into the hallway. I didn't hear anything else but a faint creak on the attic door, opening and closing like an old sore. The smell hit me for a second before disappearing into a faint, rotting undertone. I spent the whole day typing this out with my free hand, my laptop carefully perched on my nightstand. I can't shake the feeling that Moira will come for me next. But then again, I'm not sure if it will be her or the memory loss that gets to me first. My memories feel like drops of water in the palm of my hand. Every moment of the past feels fleeting. I have to hold on to something, anything, even if it's just this journal. I'm fighting through my exhaustion just to get this post out. I don't know if I'll wake up tomorrow or if this will be my last coherent thought, but as long as I'm alive, I'll keep writing. Part 5 will come, even if I can't remember how. I have to finish this for myself and for anyone still willing to read my rambling. That is part 4 of No Strings Attached. That was great. It had a lot of the things I love about this story. I love when a story has the things that you love, clumsy. Yeah, for me, the things I love about this story are clumsy, naive narrator, charming idiot maybe in some ways who, seems to be able to shrug off any red flags and just focus on, the good and stuff like that. Or the things that he thinks are good that really aren't. And more funny, more hurting himself. We got to see the creepy change of Moira. We got to see the creepy shedding of her skin. I also liked the cloudy eyes old Moira. I liked getting to see that transformation actually happen in front of us. I thought that was really cool. Thank you, Rude Dude. Yeah, I mean, honestly, for the story, I think it makes sense that Moira eats Joshua because Joshua is his one tie to his past life and whatever. And so let's think about this story as if Moira could really just be a metaphor for an abusive partner, right? Or somebody who, even a cult leader, how they isolate you, they don't want you to talk to your family or friends. So I think or just a domestic abuser, right? That they do that too. They're like, you don't need your family, or they try to manipulate you and convince you that, your family they're only gonna hurt you and they don't want the best for you, or your friends, your friends are always putting you down and always trying to make you feel bad, and which some of those things can be true. At the same time, it's some people, your friends aren't perfect, and some they can gaslight you into getting you to believe that yeah, maybe they are kind of assholes, or maybe they don't want what's best for me. And so that's just how domestic abusers and stuff isolate their victims, right? And they want total control and whatever else. And I mean, Moira, in the same sense, is doing that to him. She, at least as far as we can tell, she's the reason for him losing his memories. She's got him totally dependent on her in terms of his injury and everything else. She's taking care of him. So it makes sense that Joshua is this last, outside entity that would have any sort of sway in our narrator's life, or any sort of ability to influence him. And so it makes sense that she would want to cut that off so that she can have the narrator fully trapped in her web. So yeah, I mean, all that stuff I said was just really serious, and that those are the psychological implications of what she's doing. But I also just think it's so fun to have it be this creepy spider monster who the narrator's just kind of smitten by. And even if it's all because she's poisoned him with pheromones or something and kind of put her spell on him. It's just a lot of fun. It's fun to listen to him be like, but Moira, it's so beautiful. I hope Moira comes by soon, you know, and all this stuff. And his friend's like, why, bro? She made you break your neck. And it's like, oh, but she's the best, you know? It's super fun. And I like all that part about it. And then I like all those things I said about it. And then I also liked like the conflict between her and Joshua, and the fact that, you know, Joshua cut her, but then because she bit him, he just ended up dying anyways. You know, like Joshua didn't let us down as a friend. He fought valiantly, and I think that's cool too. It does make me sad that she got him and that he's presumed dead. Who knows? But she does like to wrap people up and save them for later. Although she said she was really hungry too, and she hungered for blood, so it's like, I don't know. Maybe she'll keep him for his blood, and she'll like drink his blood slowly like a vampire or something, and she'll keep him around for a few days. So maybe there's still some hope for Joshua. Who knows? But from the way the Venom and stuff talked, and the way that our narrator was like holding his hand and then felt him go limp, I do think there's a pretty good chance that Joshua's just GG. Joshua's just gonzo. And that is sad because Joshua was a good friend, and he was, you know, he was a cool character. And so that is a bummer. However, it's not like a bummer where I'm like, it didn't have to happen, you know? Joshua didn't need to die. It's like, I think for the story, I think it was pretty good and pretty fair that at least that Moira got Joshua. You know, I think that makes perfect sense for the story. And again, it's not like it can't. It's not like it can't. Sorry, I'm trying to. Yeah, here we go. Sucks I can't pop out my chat like until there's actually chats in it. It's kind of weird. But anyways, yeah, it you know. Oh, god damn it. My computer did that. Anyways, sorry guys, my computer's wigging out. It does this. It's a shitty old laptop. Hold on 1 second.
Supernatural stuff going on. I'm sure he would say more if he could.
You've reached the voicemail of Alex Crayley.
Damn, dude, hit that silence immediately.
On it.
Also, him being drawn back to Rosswood Park immediately with Jessica. I'm wondering when she's going to start tying into this.
Yeah. I'm sure he's going to come across Jessica in these tapes soon. Oh, this is creepy. Oh. Oh.
God damn it. Sorry, guys.
Oh, it's so menacing.
Yeah, I love how blown out the footage. It's so fucking hard to even see what that is.
Yeah. Man, that's terrifying. Just someone looking in at you while you're asleep in the car.
I hate that.
Ugh.
I hate that idea of somebody looking in while I'm sleeping.
If I had to guess, it's the operator, or not the operator, the masked one, or to the Ark or something.
I'm wondering.
From what I could tell, this was the only appearance that person made that night.
I'm suspicious still of when Jessica comes into play and wondering how they intertwine. If it was maybe like a Jessica or something.
Yeah, it could be. It could be Jessica. She's, I mean, certainly consumed either way.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have a to the Ark 1 forecast. Oh. That is a pair of lungs, it would seem.
Is that what that